single player and co-op role-playing game that can be played in first or third person, and also has an expansive integrated level editor that is coming out in August, and that game is called Isles of Adalar. Their slogan, one part RPG and one part RPG Maker, is quite the catch, especially when you take a look at the aesthetic of the game, which does look very Morrowind-esque. The game is being developed and published by a small independent studio that is called Peakway Software. That is made up of only 3 developers, which is quite amazing for what they have accomplished so far with the development of this game. Although they don't have the backing and the financial support from a large publisher, we have seen a lot of amazing RPGs come from independent studios, and this one looks pretty unique, and I think it could be one of those games. The one thing that I will point out before talking a little bit more about this game is that their release in August is for an early access. Now I know that's going to turn off some people, even myself. Early access, they do scare me, and they are often quite putting off for people because essentially we are paying for only a part of a game that is most likely going to be in early access for years to come. But they did say that the game will be at its cheapest point in August in its release, and while larger updates are put into the game, that price will increase slightly up until its official release. Like I said, it's probably going to turn a couple of people away, but for those who are still interested in the game or even want to hear about the game, well, there's actually a good amount to be excited for, especially when we're talking about a small independent studio that has even come this far. So what does this game have to offer? Well, this is Isles of Adalar. Isles of Adalar wants to deliver, as they put it, a nearly endless RPG experience rich with narrative-driven content, which refers to how large they look to develop their integrated level editor. From the very simple of small objects around the environment to having the possibility of modding together a full campaign with a story, NPCs, and more. They developed the game with the same level editor that players are going to be able to use, so the limits really can almost be endless to pretty much what the software can handle. I think it's clear that the Elder Scrolls series is an influence to this game and to these developers, and they saw how expansive the community of modding was in Skyrim, and they probably thought, hey, you know, we can probably do this, and even to a higher degree in its own game. They even are going to go as far as giving the creative community of modders their own additional tools in order to use them as resources for their own campaigns, such as different environmental biomes, different types of buildings and architectural structures, as well as mobs and different types of enemies. If you are someone who enjoys modding, not only in Skyrim, but pretty much in general, this should put a pretty big smile on your face, because I feel like the developers seem to be modders themselves. They know the power of a community, and I'm sure they want to be able to give modders and even aspiring developers the tools in order to create within a game. Now, moving over to the more RPG experience, the game will also deliver itself with single player and co-op options so that players can tackle the game with up to 4 people. Because they put such an emphasis on the RPG element in their slogan, they are putting a lot of effort into crafting this hybrid dialogue system with an in-depth conversations of NPCs that will give feedback to reflect their attitude and the response to you and your party. This means if you start to, let's say, loot and pillage a small town, and word gets to a man down the road that is friendly of those villagers, he's going to react with a negative response to you, and it could possibly end with some repercussions. There is also another determining factor that plays into the dialogue, which will be the player's multiple personality traits that they can assign to their character, in which the traits give unique responses when you do perform some dialogue. If you come across an NPC that you try to persuade into believing that you're, let's just say, like, if you're trying to persuade them that you're not evil as a way to get something from him, even though you are like the devil, between your character's level and your chosen traits, the said persuasion attempt will be made, and the NPC will respond with a gesture or a spoken word that will reflect their answer. I really like this because not only will the story unfold for the character through certain NPCs as it would, but the outcomes can be completely different given to what you choose to do within the game. Now, this gives a more interactive dialogue system than other RPGs have, where it's usually pretty linear and with no dialogue options, or really only maybe 3 or 4, which are always the same, something that you would see in like Fallout or Skyrim or Mass Effect. This one, it's going to be completely different every single time. The answers might be a little bit generic, or the gestures rather, but it does open up the world to more random conversations. I am really excited to dive into the story and definitely excited to see what people can come up with for their own campaigns that they make and the stories with the modded support. I'm also excited for the combat because it looks just how it would feel. That might be a little confusing when I say it, but it looks like the impact of the heavy weapon you carry really connects with the impact on your enemy, and blocking something looks pretty incredible too. I watched someone's video on this game and they said it looks similar to the combat in the Warhammer Vermintide series, and I absolutely agree with that. Both the first person and the third person combat looks pretty good, and obviously closer to the release of the early access release, I'm sure we will see it be a little bit more smooth, but even when you switch between the perspectives mid-combat, it does look pretty fluid. The developers post a good amount of their updates through the development to their YouTube and their social media, so if you want to check that out and their process of it, I'll leave a link in the description down below. They pretty much update it every couple months or every month or so there's a lot to dig into. We are creeping closer to that early access release, and as of right now, like I've been saying, it's in August of this year, but you know, with a lot of things going on, COVID and everything, I'm sure that can change. Especially with the size of their team. It does look impressive despite that number, and I'm excited to give it a shot down the road. But what about you? Does this look like an RPG that you can enjoy, or maybe even check out the RPG Maker elements? Let me know down in the comments down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.